Hello. I read the book Chess Story by Stefan Zweig several months ago. It was actually my first Zweig book that I read and instantly fell in love with his writing. I talked about it spoiler-free when I first read it and have been wanting to come back and retroactively do a bit of a longer spoiler discussion, knowing that probably a lot of people that watch my channel may not be interested in this particular video, but it's just one that I've been wanting to do to kind of process the book and talk through it a little bit for those that are interested. This is such a short little novella. I couldn't find my physical copy when I went to film this video, but it's on screen. I think it was under 100 pages, if I'm remembering correctly. I read it all in one sitting because it was so engrossing and compelling. I'm astonished, having now read 3 of Zweig's short stories, at his ability to write obsession, fixation in such a compelling and tragic way. I've seen it in all 3 of his short stories that I've read, and it draws me in. His prose, I think, is beautiful, and the way that he writes this human compulsion and obsession to the point of destruction, or in the case of Chess Story, it wasn't a self-destruction, is just so evocative to me. It's hard to put his stories down. I haven't read Zweig's autobiography yet. I will eventually, but Chess Story is a book that has really stuck with me over time, and I just wanted to dig into it a little bit more. I do think that the beginning of the story, while well written and still drew me in, as someone who isn't interested at all in chess and doesn't care to watch a chess game personally, because I don't even know the rules, I still was so drawn in by this setup of people who wanted to play this game with the world's greatest chess player, and how they organized that, and each move being strategized while the chess player went and read a paper in between plays because he couldn't care less. All he was doing was, playing for the paycheck, playing for the money that he would win, or rather not win. He was getting paid regardless. And the fixation of specifically the man of means, the one who is paying the professional, and his desire to prove that he's not just some third-rate chess player. So a small fixation to begin with, then of course escalated by the man, the stranger, who comes in and is able to identify where they're going wrong and what they should do next. And as we watch his story unfold, how that fixation is then magnified in the story and how it was developed in him. And I do believe that the retelling of his isolation torture was the primary, it was the most, as far as I remember the story, it was the largest amount of pages and was the most naturally important part of the tale as well. But the man that we follow was captured by the Nazi regime, and because he had information that they wanted from him, rather than putting him in a concentration camp, instead they put him in a hotel room and subjected him to isolation torture, first completely alone for seemingly a long period of time, to where already it started to wear on him, and then beginning the questioning, the interrogations. And each interrogation, we already begin with that deep sense of unease and discomfort, and that feeling of desperation that immediately he's left in, being isolated, being captured, but also not knowing how much information they already have. What have they already uncovered? Who have they interviewed? What information has been forfeit? And so every single sentence he utters, every single question he answers, he isn't sure what they already know, so he isn't sure if what he's saying aligns with what they know, or if he is giving away too much, withholding too much. And after each questioning, he then is just tossed back into that room where he's left with nothing but nothingness. And so he's left to his thoughts, fixating on the conversations, fixating on the questions that he answered, fixating on, did I do it right? Did I give too much away? Did I withhold too much? What can I do for the next one? And around he goes into these questionings that that he isn't sure if he's doing correctly or not, and then tossed back into isolation, which is just maddeningly the same day after day. And as he continues through this routine, he too is feeling himself degrading, noticing his mind no longer being as sharp as it once was, no longer being able to really analyze each situation and keep track of what he's already said, noticing himself having outbursts of, okay, I'll tell you everything, just get me out of here, but then regaining his composure. And he witnesses himself losing his resolve in the midst of this torture. The thrill that came over him when he was introduced to a new space, when he was put in a different room and he was able to see the material of a coat, count the buttons on that coat, look at a raindrop that's falling on the window, falling down the window, and tracing its pattern and fixating on when it'll reach the end. Just the relief, the extreme relief that came over him when he entered a new space and he had something new to look at, something new to interact with mentally, other than just the same. And then he saw that bulge in the fabric of one of the coats and dared to just touch it, just to know what could be inside of the coat, and then to reach in and find that it's a book. And then the whole sequence of him tucking it under his belt and walking in a specific way and faking a coughing fit as it starts to slip down his leg, this desperate need to be able to get something back to his room that could engage his mind, that could teach him something, that could give him something to look at and to think about, instead of just the nothing. And he really fixated too on the fact that he didn't have paper, he didn't have pen, he didn't have anything to express himself or to have any sort of release. And now he had a book, and that excitement that came over him at something, only to find that it's a chess anthology, something that he, much like I, he doesn't care about. He doesn't need a play-by-play of chess matches that have happened over time. He doesn't care about, he doesn't even know these chess board markers like C1, C2, C3. He doesn't even know what those things mean. And the utter disappointment at it. But then the resolve of, well, this is all I have. And so learning the game and reading the pages and realizing, oh, my bedspread can be a checkerboard, and these stale pieces of crumbled bread could be chess pieces, and going over and over and over again these games and playing them out, playing both sides of it, recreating games that he's read about, and what a release that was to him. But then having memorized the games to the point that there was no recreating them anymore, because the first piece is moved and then the whole rest of the game he knows exactly how it'll unfold because he's done it so many times. So now he has to start creating his own games, and that is what this new gift that was to him turns into a split in him, where he now has to create new games in himself, and in doing so he has to play the black and the white, and he has to he creates in him these new personas that would play each side. And now, instead of a measured, well-paced, peaceful recreation of a game that was an excellent mental exercise, now it is an aggressive game of wills. Now it is two personas inside of him that are desperately trying to win, and when one loses, the other launches himself into the match again to avenge himself, and it becomes more hostile and aggressive, and in him becomes this no longer release, but instead a new captive. So now the game has taken over his very self, to the point that the interrogations are not something he cares about. They're not something that he attempts to do well. It's something that he sloppily tries to get through so that he can get back to his room. The room that was once his prison cell, no, his torture chamber. It was the last place on earth he would want to be thrown back into. It was nothing but nothing. It was misery. Now it's his obsession. Now it's the only thing he wants to return to. He doesn't care about leaving the room. He doesn't care about his survival or his release. He simply wants to get back to the game. The image that was depicted in the short story, the novella, when he was rescued was so tragic. That of the person on the outside of the room hearing him fighting with someone and bursting in to find him shouting into air, "Aren't you going to make your move, you coward?" And then attacking his rescuer. We were so trapped inside of his mind that we saw his unraveling within himself, but then from the outside, it's even more sad. It's so desperate how lost he's become in the delusion that was meant to be his rescue, that was meant to be his reprieve. So then we swap back to present day and we see that his compulsion to enter the game, to see, no, you're making the wrong move, no, you're doing it wrong, like this, I have to correct it, I know the right move. It was something that he couldn't resist. And so he promised, he said, I just want one game. I don't want to slip back into this obsession. I don't want to slip back into this thing that took me over. I just want to know that I can play with another person, that I can play on a board with someone on the other side and not lose myself. And if I do, one and done. I'm not going to continue playing because of the risk of slipping back into where I once was. So he plays. And again, slowly we just watch it unfold as he takes his time and he really measures each step, and he is successful, but then slowly he starts becoming abrasive and starts pacing back and forth, and we get a picture of what he must have looked like from the outside when he was trapped in that room. And then losing himself into his mind where he's playing this game here, but then in his mind he's playing a dozen other games, and he, with each time it's his turn to move again, he has to, wait, where am I? What's happening? Oh, reassess the board again and start again and continue to lose himself here as he's working here. And we watched him from the inside of his mind for the bulk of the book. We saw what he was seeing and what he was experiencing. And then once we come back to present day, we watch him from the outside and we see what all of what we experienced with him looks like to those observing him. And it's so tragic. It's so painful to observe from both angles. Easily, for me, the most difficult part of the book, the part that brought tears to my eyes, was when he shouted out, "Aren't you going to make your move, you coward?" In now, bringing us right back to the point of his rescue when he was in the depths of his I don't know the correct word for what he was experiencing, but the results of the torture he was enduring. And then shortly thereafter, placing the piece and saying, "Check," or "checkmate." I don't remember exactly what he shouted out, but thinking he won. And everyone, first his opponent saying, "I don't believe so." And then everyone around observing the board and saying, "No, I don't think so." And finally, our protagonist, who we started the book with, he's not truly the protagonist, but he is the conduit to which we get the story. He touches his arm, or he touched the scar on his hand, I think, touches him to kind of bring him back, to anchor him back to where he really is. And just like the contrite way that he kind of like pulls into himself and goes, "Oh, I'm sorry. Have I done something wrong? Did I go outside of myself, or did I do something stupid?" And forfeiting, stopping, and realizing that he did let it go too far, and he had played multiple matches despite promising he would only do one. And the story abruptly ends. I've read 3 Zweig stories, and each of them have had very abrupt endings, not the kind of ending that you might deem as satisfying by modern day standards, but something that is Zweig. I don't know what to say about it. I've accepted it. I'm fine with it. But it ends on just that. Just the state, realizing where he is today and how much what happened to him still affects him, of course. I haven't done like I said, I haven't read Zweig's autobiography at this point. I did read his wiki page, and knowing that, you know, he, during the Nazi regime, was on the SS blacklist and had to move country to country, trying not to be found, you know, the assumed fear that he must have lived in that time under those conditions, knowing how his life came to an end, and knowing that the book was written only a year before he died by suicide. I don't really know. I mean, this isn't much of a review, really. It's just kind of me talking through the book, kind of like just getting it out finally. I don't really know that you can review this book other than just to kind of discuss it and appreciate it for what it is. It is one that has stuck to me, though. It's one that I frequently think about and that has really had a strong impact on me. And I think Zweig, just in general, the way he writes has an impact on me, whether I haven't read a happy story by him yet, but I don't need to. I think that his stories are important, especially this one is important. And I guess I just wanted to talk to you about it. So here we are. If you have read the book, or if you haven't and you just wanted to hear more about it, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to continue discussing it. So please do continue chatting with me there, and I appreciate you hanging out with me while we talk about Chess Story. Thanks again, Ruby, for sending this to me years ago and then waiting oh so patiently until I got to it. What a gift. Bye.